the basic objective of copyright is for the encouragement of learning, one. Two, for the encouragement of learned men and women to produce good work that would benefit society, works of art, literature, dance, drama, and a whole range of other works. Although Guyana do not, we in Guyana do not have a particular copyright act, we are signatory to a number of organizations like the 1956 Copyright Act of UK, which we acceded to in 1966, like the Universal Copyright Convention, 1952, the Berne Convention, 1997, and we are also a member of World Intellectual Property Organization, WIPO. Despite we are signatories to these international bodies, what we produce is important because now more than ever in this modern age, artists, the producers of literary work, art, songs are feeling more and more devalued. First, why do you think the work that you do, well, let me precede this. You're a performer, a songwriter, among other things. On the stage, we see what you do, your antics, your singing. And we kind of reconcile that it is worth something. We pay to see you. But behind the scene, you produce your own songs and songs for others. You're right behind the scenes. We don't see that act. Perhaps we see it's given credit somewhere that it's written by Dave Martins. Mm. The question is, how can you communicate the value of what you do to the consumer? What's important, so important of this work that you produce? Later on, I'll ask you to elucidate what the thing that you do should be termed work. How should we value work? How do you see that?
Well, there's several aspects. That the most immediate one, it is a product. Mm-hmm. It's the product of what I do. In other words, if somebody is manufacturing stoves, for example, for the public to use, that's what they produce. The public doesn't take those stoves and use them for free. You either buy it outright in a store, or you purchase it, or in some instances you can lease these things. But you don't take those products and use them without some sort of economic handover taking place. So that's the first answer. It is the product of what I do. Mm-hmm. It is intangible, perhaps, but that doesn't make it unreal. You know, it's still my product of what I do. So in a very narrow sense, for the person whose career is that product, you are taking my product and using it and not paying me or not paying anybody for it. And that's the dilemma. And that's what the Copyright Act and these copyright WIPO and the various ones, Berne, the UK one, which applies in Cayman where I live, that's what it seeks to redress. You're taking this man's stuff and you're not paying him. Okay, well, you have to pay him. That's what copyright says.
Okay.
And that applies to any application of the work. And it is important to mention that because, as we have learned in recent years, when your product is this intangible thing, you don't know what 5 years from now or 10 years from now, some new application or some new use of that product will come on stream. Cell phones, for example, ringtones and cell phones, using people's music. Nobody thought of that 15 years ago, or maybe even 10 years ago. Now, hey, there's revenue here. Why must the consumer and the producer of cell tones take your music and sell it for somebody to use in a cell phone for their enjoyment, Where is the product? You go back to the product. The product is the music. Why aren't you paying me for this? Why are you just taking it? Why are you thieving it? Put
Why
it
you
that way. Right.
I said earlier.
I mean, that's the first point. There's several others,
Right.
but that's the first point.
All right. Well, you want to continue?
Yeah. The next one obviously is that in a more selfish sense, the people who are the engineers of the economy have to begin to understand that it's not just me that benefits from the Copyright Act, because once you copyright material, it then becomes a business exercise for other people who are distributing the stuff, people who are manufacturing the stuff, the tangible product that comes from the intangible thing. There's an economic benefit that spill over way beyond me, so that publishing companies, for example, copyright organizations, collecting agencies, wholesalers, retailers of the product, all of those people.
Wow.
It's an enormous engine of industry.
Yeah.
And I'll give you a quick example. It is such an enormous engine of industry that in Canada, when I was living in Canada in the 1960s, when the legislation came in to make radio stations play local Canadian music, which didn't exist before, the engine behind it was this industry, this publishing, recording industry that was part of the economy. And they went to the legislators and said, look, we're paying taxes, and this is our business, and you're giving this stuff away. And one, and two, you're not requiring stations in our own country to play Canadian music. So legislation came in. It's still in force. Now, that was we're talking about 45 years later. It's still in force, which says a radio station license is predicated on you got to play 40% Canadian material in the course of the year, or we take it away next year.
All right.
Right. So that is the engine. So that is the other thing that's behind the scenes. The third part is that this is also a very it encourages the development, copyright, because of the financial benefit it produces. It encourages the development of things that ultimately bolster national identity, national pride, national feelings about things. Another quick example: if you feel pride in your country and value in your country, and you're enthusiastic about your country, you're going to throw styrofoam on the road. It may seem strange to people, but you have to have that thing that's operating. Why do you go to some countries and these people are furious if you throw a bottle in the road? Well, you're messing up my country. Where does that come from? That comes from a feeling of pride in the country. Where did that come from? That comes from understanding our artists, understanding our producers, understanding the value that we have. All of that, that's another spill.
There's a fourth reason that you.
Well, the fourth one is that it leads. It's an extension of that one, in that it leads to people seeing their country in a different way. A man just recently, in the last couple of days, said to me, "Blade of Grass." He said, "Boy," and he said, "This is a very calm, reasonable, reserved gentleman who I admire a lot." And you could see the change in his face. He said, "When I heard that song," he says, I said, "Yes," I started to feel
Good.
almost
Pride in your
emotional,
country,
right?
the identity.
So again, the copyrighted material, if you're not encouraging this kind of thing to happen, you are losing that. You're losing that fervor that comes to a people. It's allied to the third point I made, but it goes a little farther, because it goes now to the individual who sees himself, and to me, one of the biggest problems I saw when I started writing music for the Caribbean Mind was that we have this feeling, and it exists up to today, a feeling of negativity, of self-doubt, because of how we grew up in colonial times. Well, you're doing no good, all that kind of thing. This changes it. So that it's a long process. But if you're making sure that a country produces material, and this Copyright Act encourages it to happen because there's an economic benefit, down the road you have a man who sees himself as an individual, not country now. We're talking about individual self-confidence. That's how it grows. From being able to draw on those things and realize, okay, I'm watching them guys on TV and I'm seeing that kind of music, But the TV turn on and look, I have over here something of that value, you know.
Quite a mouthful.
Mm.
With all what you said, it's striking me really rich, really making an impact on me. After all of what you've said, why are we as a country is not giving the artists, why are you not giving you your dues for all these things we produce? Why? I mean, we have the laws there. We're part of the laws. You produce the work, benefit to society, yourself, development of the country, and all that. Why are we not giving you your dues?
Yeah. Well, I think the short answer is that it's intangible. That's the short answer, this simplistic answer. In other words, you can see the bridge going up. You can see the man putting up a new building in town. You can see the 15 minibuses the guy has now instead of one. You can see that development growing. But you can't see once you switch off the TV or turn off the radio, where is the product? It's not something you can measure. You can see 5 today, 10 tomorrow. You know, you don't get in it and drive anywhere. You don't turn on anything to heat up your house or whatever it is you do. It's intangible. That's the main
And
reason.
as much as it's intangible, it does all of that thing. It brings, it heats your home, it drives a car. Art does this.
Exactly.
So why we not giving the artists his
Well,
due?
because as I said, because as you say, after the guy finished jumping up, it's nothing for you to look at and recognize. And the other thing is that traditionally, if you see, all of this goes back in a way, you know, it's to our dilemma in the Caribbean of self-doubt. Because if you start out believing, this is a fundamental point, if you start out believing that what you're producing, well, is we owned by it, and that good, you know? You see where this is going?
Yes.
Why would you then be concerned about protecting it?
But what about let's move from the individual to the country now. The legislators, the authority. There must be some sense of duty that this is my country, this is our country. We have an identity. We have a
Okay.
product.
Yeah. Well, I know where you're going with that. And the answer to that is that the politician is really in a dilemma in this case.
Meaning?
Because the politician may have the vision we're talking about. And some of them do. I've talked to some of them about this issue. And
I'm glad you raised that. Yeah.
Right. And some of them do. I think most of them do. But we keep forgetting the politician don't have to deal with us. The politician has to deal with the mass. And it's difficult for him, as we're talking here, it's difficult for him to get across to the mass. Well, boy, this thing is intangible, but you got to pay for it. You know, the mass, the unwashed. You understand? Will say, but minister, they ain't feeding me children, or they gotta fix my bridge first. So what happened to the school? You know, we have to give the politician some understanding in this work. It's not easy.
Right.
The politician is often, to me, is the hardest job in the world. I don't want to be a politician because politician got his 10 different people coming into him with 10 different interests, and you got to satisfy them all. That's why they end up lying. We set up a situation in politics where we require a politician to lie. How is he going to tell 10 different people the same thing and leave all 10 of them happy? Even Jesus couldn't do that, you know what I mean? So the political side of it is difficult. But I think it requires people of vision and people of backbone who will stand up to the constituents and say, listen, I understand what you're saying, but I'm telling you this is for your own good, and try to, it's a difficult road. I'm not saying it's easy.
And it also leaves the artist in a dilemma because it seems like the artist needs to promote his own work and ensure that he is paid.
Yeah.
for
Well,
that.
I think there are a couple of things. I don't know how much time we have here, but there are a couple of things that need to happen. The first thing, I come to Guyana frequently. I'm here many times a year. Last year I was here 6 times. This year I've been here 3 times already. So I'm in contact with this place. I'm outside. I'm one of them outsiders that still here. In fact, next year I'm coming back to live probably and permanently.
Oh, wow.
But one thing that has to happen is these people have to start talking to one another. The artist, the producer of art, whatever that is, music, painting, singing, dance, literature, whatever, we have to find a way for those people to be able to talk constructively, not to row. Rowing don't get you nowhere. Rowing to just get people back up and people get polarized. We have to find a mechanism for those people to talk to the people who can make a difference, the ministers of the government, Minister of Culture, Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Minister of Tourism, all those people, the Prime Minister, the President, to sit down and gaff with them and say, look, let me try and solve this thing, because at the end of the day, it's going to be everybody's benefit.
Yeah.
COT in Barbados in 2005 collected $1 million in US. This is what I was talking about before. There's money in this thing for everybody, not just the artist.
And lots of benefits.
So that's the first thing that has to happen, that people have to. I think that's the major hurdle that has to be crossed.
Yeah, you need to know that, relate to it.
Right.
All right.
And I think that disposition is there. I mean, the guys I've talked to have said, look, it's a difficult thing, but we're working on it. So.
Well, we look forward to your return to Guyana.
Well, maybe I can
and
help
then to
push when I come
stimulate,
back.
to stimulate
Yeah.
this process
Right.
and this dialogue
Right.
towards.
And I don't have any problem with that, I think the Caribbean generally, we have this rowing approach to things, You gotta.
Yeah, we need to change that.
Yes,
and talk.
as this old people say, swallow a spit, and sit down and talk, it can come, it will come,
And
it
we
must
can,
come.
and we can use that old people saying
Yeah.
in so many other aspects in life.
Absolutely.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.